So yesterday, the CBO came out with this new score on Trumpcare, which is actually just the Freedom Caucus / Paul Ryan plan. That's essentially a giant tax cut for the donors. And that's what the whole thing's about. That's what it's always been about. And they just dress it up as, oh, we're going to repeal and replace healthcare or Obamacare with something much, much better. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic. Trust me. Well, we don't trust you. Now, they want to do this by eliminating, of course, all the taxes. And again, that's the real reason this entire bill exists. Giant tax cut. So now, let me go through some of the findings from the CBO report to give you a detail on the stuff that they've changed. So there's a mix of good things and bad things, but of course, you're not going to be surprised that it's mostly bad. According to the Huffington Post, the CBO found that 23 million fewer Americans would have insurance under Trumpcare. So, wow. I guess that's a positive. I mean, it's a million less, because the old CBO score had it at 24 million. Well, wonderful. Okay. Wow. What a change. Now, the CBO also predicted that the deficit would come down by $119 billion over the next decade. So, hey, if you're worried about the deficit, and, you know, there's some reason to be, you might look at that and be like, okay, great. $119 billion. Wonderful. So if you care about that, awesome. Now, another possible good thing, premiums for people buying insurance on their own will generally be lower for younger consumers. So, hey, if you're young, great. That's going to help you out a little bit. Now, that's actually sort of deceptive when you think about it, when you drill into the details. But on its face, that sounds like a good thing. Hey, I'm younger, I'm healthy. My insurance is going to be cheaper. Great. Wonderful. Now, the other side of that, now we get into the bad. Now, well, actually, no, before I get into the bad, let me give you more details on what a younger person would pay. 21-year-old could buy unsubsidized policies for as little as $3,700 a year under the House bill, compared to $5,100 under the Affordable Care Act. So that's significant savings. Now, again, it's not good. It's if for older people, for people who are sick, and of course the savings here is very deceptive. I'm going to explain how, but first, it's going to be higher for older and sicker people than those premiums would be under or if the Affordable Care Act stays into place. So there's a definite change here. Younger people are going to get lower premiums. Older, sicker people are going to get higher premiums. So that's how this works. Now, overall prices, they explain, would come down for healthy people because those who are sick or have illness in their medical histories would end up having less access for coverage. And the policies available on the market would actually tend to be a lot less comprehensive, meaning it wouldn't cover a whole lot, meaning that this is the return of junk insurance plans. That was things that they used to have pre-ACA that barely qualified as insurance, but they're cheap. They're cheap enough to call themselves or to be, you know, more and more affordable, but not quite insurance enough, or just barely insurance enough to call themselves insurance. So these are the plans with incredibly high deductibles that cover very, very few things. So now, insurance on average, they explain, would pay for a smaller proportion of healthcare costs. The budget office even predicts that several million people would opt out or opt to use the bill's new tax credits to buy plans that are so bare-boned that they don't even really qualify as health insurance. So on that, well, then what's the point of buying it? I mean, look, it's essentially throwing money down a hole. And look, I know some young, healthy people might think that's the case with insurance right now. Well, I'm paying all these premiums, I'm paying all this money, and I'm not using the insurance. I'm healthy. What do I need the insurance for? Why should I get insurance? Well, because something might happen to you. You could get into a car accident, or you can get cancer, or any sort of things. You could even get fucking botulism or something like that. I mean, stuff happens all the time. That's why you have insurance. That's what insurance is for. In case you get unexpectedly sick. It's not like you plan it out. It's not like I plan to get sick 2 years from now and be like, okay, I'm going to make sure to have good insurance by then in 2 years. So if I get sick, since I'm planning on getting sick about 2 years from now, I should be covered then. So why should I get insurance now? It doesn't make any sense. No. Insurance is for just in case. That's the whole point. Now, under these cheap, barely qualified as insurance plans, if you get sick, you're screwed. That's it. No more details. Now, the bill would also take away $1.1 trillion from programs that help people get insurance coverage, including $834 billion in cuts to Medicaid over the course of the next decade. Now, the result of that would be 51 million Americans without health insurance by 2026, compared to 28 million under the current law. The House-passed bill would effectively reverse all of the Affordable Care Act's coverage expansion, which pushed the the uninsured rate to a historic low. So if you're poor, if you rely on Medicaid, disaster. If you're old, it's even more of a disaster. Now remember that 21-year-old doing pretty good, saving some money. They could get a policy for $3,700 versus $5,100. Now, if you're older, well, get this. A 64-year-old's annual unsubsidized premium would rise from $15,300 to as much as $21,000. Ouch, man. That's gotta hurt. Now, if you're a younger person, you gotta understand the reason that your premiums are gonna go down. It's because you're gonna end up pricing older people out of the market. And those with pre-existing conditions, they would also be priced out of the market. Gone. That's why your premiums go down. It's basically benefiting you while screwing over other people. That's what's going down here. It is kind of the ultimate fuck you, I got mine mentality. That's what the people who drafted this piece of legislation, that's what they believe in. Where you're going to get yours, but fuck everybody else. Now, speaking of pre-existing conditions. Now, Trump and Republicans, they love to say, pre-existing conditions. Of course we're going to cover pre-existing conditions. And that's a part of the bill. I mean, we want to cover pre-existing conditions. Super popular, right? So we're gonna save it. We're gonna save it. Well, are they? Now, in the bill that was brought up earlier this month, that did not get a vote, Republicans would allow states to waive community ratings that prohibit insurers from charging higher premiums to people at greater risk of medical problems. Those are the people with pre-existing conditions. Now, the CBO writes on how that would likely change access to health care to people with those pre-existing conditions. Quote, community-rated premiums would rise over time, and people who are less healthy, including those with pre-existing conditions or newly acquired medical conditions, would ultimately be unable to purchase comprehensive non-group health insurance at premiums comparable to those under current law, if they could purchase it at all, despite the additional funding that would be available under H.R. 1628 to help reduce premiums. Now, that's, of course, they would funnel all these people into what are known as high-risk pools and then throw some federal money at it. Well, how much they're throwing at it is not going to be nearly enough to be able to lower premiums to a point of where people with pre-existing conditions or new conditions can be able to afford those premiums, effectively pricing them out of the market. As a result, the CBO writes, the non-group markets in those states would become unstable for people with higher than average expected healthcare costs. That instability would cause some people who have been insured in the non-group market under current law to be uninsured. Again, you're kicking people out. Gone. Fancy way of saying, if you have a pre-existing condition, well, and your insurer jacks up the price because they're allowed to do so without this community rating, and you can't afford that price increase, sad day. Enjoy dying. Now, look, some of you might be saying, Jeff, that is unfair. That is so rude. That is hyperbole. How dare you say that? They don't want people to die. And besides, they're not going to die. There's emergency rooms. People can just go to the emergency room. Okay, emergency rooms are fantastic when you break your arm. Not when you need chemo or kidney dialysis. Look, emergency rooms are not set up for long-term care like you would with a normal doctor. So that's not an option. It's not an actual thing. Oh, just go to the emergency care room if you have if you need care, if you need a doctor. No, emergency is for emergencies. They're not set up for cancer patients. They're not set up for any of those long-term health problems. But again, they have no idea what's going on. And look, they don't care, really. The people who have those pre-existing conditions, they do not care if they can't afford insurance. They just don't. All they care about, and we've seen it, is repealing the taxes in Obamacare for their donors. This is essentially social Darwinism mixed with greed. Now, did you expect anything different from Paul Ryan and the Freedom Caucus? Those are the people who continue to put forward even more draconian measures. In fact, before the new agreement on Trumpcare, it originally failed because the Freedom Caucus said it wasn't draconian enough. It didn't kick poor people in the face enough. You have to understand that they don't want you to have health insurance unless you're rich or unless you're incredibly healthy, which helps their donors. It's not about health care. It's never been about health care. It's about cutting taxes while at the same time basically telling older and sick people, hey, you're on your own. They don't believe that health care is a human right. Now, look, I got to tell you, most of America doesn't agree with that. You see, this bill, deeply unpopular. It's even deeply unpopular in the Republican Party, where you have a lot of so-called moderates who looked at this bill and were like, no, this is terrible. We can't vote for this. Number one, it is exceedingly cruel. We're only a little cruel. And number two, we're going to get destroyed as the ballot box in come 2018. No, I cannot vote for this. We can't vote for this. Now, you know what is popular, however? What is something that can fix our system, that can rein in costs, that can cover everybody? The things that Donald Trump had actually talked about doing? Well, that would be Medicare for all. Over 60% of Americans are already in favor of it. Even a majority of Republicans. They're in favor of a government-run single-payer healthcare plan. They're not in favor of your shitty Trumpcare, RyanCare bullshit plan. So how about instead of doing Trumpcare, which is a disaster, and it's going to be a disaster for any politician who votes for it, how about we take the step to join the rest of the civilized world in expanding healthcare to everyone? Radical idea. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.